They want to enslave you. They want to program their CBDC to only authorize your purchases of bug and insect-based foods. They want to erase your financial freedom from existence. But fear not, for episode 10 of season 2 of the Outlaw Crypto podcast brings forth a warrior of the cryptographic underground, a legend of the privacy resistance, a censorship-resistant coder of pure anarchic energy, none other than Alex Romanov of Beam. Alex Romanov is not just a developer. No, he is a liberator, a technical assassin, a cypherpunk insurgent who has dedicated his life to tearing down the surveillance empire, shredding the financial overlord's death grip on transaction privacy, and building the cryptographic tools necessary for humanity's escape from the digital gulag. Beam is not just a coin. Beam is a weapon. Since 2018, the Beam protocol has been a burning torch of defiance against the KYC chains, the centralized crypto traders, and the government spooks who wish to reduce Bitcoin and Ethereum into permissioned, trackable, state-controlled honeypots. Mimblewimble, Lelantis, Dandelion++. These aren't just protocols. They are spells of financial sorcery. They are digital camouflage that make Beam transactions untraceable, unstoppable, and beyond the reach of the corrupt banking cartels. No addresses, no transaction visibility, no compliance to the Orwellian financial overlords. And at the helm of this unstoppable cryptographic force, forging the chains of financial privacy stronger than the corrupt fiat empire's lies, is Alex Romanov. This man has seen through the fiat illusion. He has rejected the centralized so-called DeFi Ponzi schemes, and he has built something that terrifies the surveillance class to their very core. Atomic swaps, decentralized, peer-to-peer, no middlemen, no censorship. Laser beam channels, instant payments that cut out the banks and their digital parasites, confidential assets, privacy-first tokens, untouchable by the KYC surveillance state. And now, the Ethereum bridge, where Beam's untraceable privacy tech infiltrates the very heart of the smart contract empire, striking a fatal blow to the chain analysis vultures who feast on the rotting corpse of privacy-dead blockchains. This is the future they fear. A world where transactions are anonymous, power is decentralized, and the people regain control of their money. Alex Romanov isn't just a developer. He is a digital freedom fighter, a financial cryptography warlord, a hacker rebel, tearing the chains off of humanity's enslaved financial existence. This is the episode they don't want you to hear. This is the truth bomb that will send the KYC compliance officers, the globalist banksters, and the surveillance state into a spiral of despair. So tune in, take notes, and join the resistance.
We're back with another episode of the Outlaw Crypto Podcast. I'm your host, Paranoia Machinery. This is a podcasting 2.0 podcast, which means you can support the podcast through streaming sats on the Fountain app. You can send a boost with sats on the Fountain app over Lightning. And then we also accept a variety of privacy coins like Monero, Wownero, and you can also leave a tip with XMR chat. Today, my guest is Alex Romanov, who is from Beam. Beam is a privacy-oriented smart contracting cryptocurrency platform similar to Ethereum and other Web3 blockchains, except for that it's private and it has Mimblewimble as the driving privacy protocol behind it. Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show. People don't know this, but we already did this interview and then it was lost. So now we're doing it again. And I really appreciate you being so generous with your time and being willing to come back on the show. I know you're a busy guy. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great. And thank you very much for having me. Yeah, we did record it and it was amazing. I would have never, missed the opportunity for this to get out there just because of any minor incident. So absolutely, I would be happy to discuss Beam again, and actually anytime.
Well, thanks again. And let's get into it, man. Like, why don't you tell people about Beam? Because I feel like Beam is very, very slept on in the privacy community. I feel like a lot of people don't know about it. And people are putting their hopes on other projects that maybe haven't quite achieved what Beam has achieved. I know people are really looking forward to smart contracting platforms like DarkFi or Zano and Firo that are going to offer a degree of privacy, but Beam is already there, and a lot of people just aren't aware of it. Can you tell us about Beam?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we jokingly call Beam, like the best kept secret in privacy. Um, uh, yeah, so kind of a little bit of a background where this all came from, because it's been many years, even though it's very fresh in my memory, but it did start in 2018. Back then, the main kind of privacy-oriented protocols were Zcash and Monero.
Okay.
And one of the issues that were affecting the performance was the kind of very large blockchain size compared to Bitcoin for the similar amount of transactions, because in addition to standard transaction information, there was also a need to keep more kind of encrypted data, and this caused the blockchain size to be much larger. And one of the things that happened a bit before that in 2016, an anonymous author who we don't know till this very day who that is or was, uh, published a very interesting white paper called Mimblewimble. And in it, and it's a very short paper, it's like 4 pages, but it described a very interesting approach to privacy that didn't use ZK or zero knowledge and didn't use ring signatures, but instead it has essentially replaced the structure of a traditional like Bitcoin UTXO with a cryptographic primitive that's called Pedersen commitment. And Pedersen commitment allows us to encrypt the data in a way. So you have some secret key, and then the value of your transaction is encrypted. But also it allows you to prove the ownership of this UTXO by presenting the same, more like kind of proving knowledge on the same secret key. And when you replace traditional like standard Bitcoin UTXOs with this structure, you get 2 interesting kind of effects. The first one, everything becomes encrypted. But even more importantly, because of the properties of this cryptographic primitive, when you combine all of the transactions together, you can actually omit all of the intermediate ones. So for example, if you send funds from user A to user B, and then from B to C, then in order to prove the validity of the blockchain in the Mimblewimble protocol, you only need to keep the edges, like the A and C, and you can completely remove the transaction information about B. And if you expand this approach to the entire blockchain, it means that you only need to remember 2 things. The first one is when this UTXO was born, which basically means the Coinbase, right, the reward when it was mined first, and the current state. And this is enough information to be able to prove the entire blockchain is valid. Now, what this means in practice is that a new node that connects to the network does not necessarily need to download the entire history of all the transactions on the blockchain. It only needs to download the headers of the blockchain, which is where the Coinbase is, and the current state. And this is significantly less than the entire history of transactions. So that was kind of the idea. The second interesting point was that in Mimblewimble, you don't need to store addresses on chain, because you can prove for each UTXO that you own it. And whenever the UTXO exchanges ownership from wallet A to wallet B, what happens in the background is that a new secret key is created, and then UTXO is recorded to this key. And then you don't have any address on the blockchain at all. Now, it's a huge benefit for privacy, because unlike any system where you have the address on chain, if your address is compromised at some point in the future, then the history is preserved and you can go back and, so for that specific compromised address, know what happened. In Mimblewimble, it's not possible. Like, even if my wallet is compromised in the future, there is no history, right? They can know what I have at that time, but they cannot know who I have transacted with before. The downside is that the transactions were interactive. Now, this is all kind of technical aspects. And when we approached it, we were the second project to start working on Mimblewimble. The first one was Green. They started about a year and a half before us. They use different technological stack. We use C++. They use Rust. We did a little bit more kind of infrastructure work as well, developing wallets. And we also needed to somehow overcome this interactivity issue. So you cannot just get an address and send somebody funds. The wallets need to negotiate and co-sign the transaction. So we had to develop a system for the wallets to talk also in encrypted fashion. But eventually, both projects were launched at about the same time in January 2019. So Beam launched on January 3rd, which was a 10-year anniversary of the Bitcoin Genesis block, a very remarkable and important date. We chose to be mined on GPUs. Initially, we used Equihash protocol, but then we have changed it also to Beam Hash, which is a bespoke consensus protocol for Beam. And from that point back in 2019, we continued to kind of improve and develop the project. One of the key, I think, moments came when we realized that we will have to add smart contracts. But before I talk about that, maybe you have kind of some questions or.
Well, yeah, I was actually going to ask about that because as I remember it, Grin and Beam launched around the same time. And I remember that Grin basically wanted to be like just a peer-to-peer digital cash, and they didn't really have any interest in pursuing any additional functionality like smart contracts. And I was under the assumption that Beam was very, very similar. It was just like a different implementation, and that it was very similar to Grin in that time when they both launched. So I was going to ask, like, when did you guys decide to like pursue smart contracts and like Web3 functionality?
Yeah, so when we started, initially it was all about exchange of value. And as you know, the crypto industry changes all the time. And just like DeFi has kind of appeared and became very prominent a couple of years later, after like 2021, 22, it has become very clear to us that in addition to being able to do a confidential transfer of value, people will also be very interested in having access to confidential DeFi. Because the explosion of decentralized exchanges, lending protocols, algorithmic stablecoins, and this entire ecosystem, especially when you're talking about serious traders, organizations, people who don't necessarily want any kid with a laptop and a Python script to be able to know exactly what they're trading, when they're trading. And if you go, like if you are familiar with any of the tracing tools, the amount of information that can be deduced is enormous. I mean, there are several examples which basically show you the transaction graph, like which protocols you're trading with. You just enter the address of the wallet, and that's it. That's enough, right? And instantly, you get all of the interactions of that wallet, either with other wallets or a DeFi ecosystem, exchanges, the public addresses, etc. So if I wanted to do any, like either front running, right, basically trying to track or attack, and this is the entire MEV industry today is about, right? Or I just want to analyze behavior and then do copy trading, or any trading activity is completely transparent and this information can be used by your competitors. And obviously, if you're a business and you're paying your employees or your contractors, your suppliers in crypto, then any other business can also know about it and know exactly how much you're paying for everything. We thought it's a problem. It's a problem because that's not, I don't think this is a choice, right? I think people say, yeah, you know what, I'm a business, but I don't really care. I can just publish my bank statements any day. I don't have any problem with that. I think the situation is that the DeFi is very effective mechanism for trading. However, it comes with this kind of necessarily being forced to disclose information that otherwise you would prefer to keep private. And so we have, in those years when the DeFi exploded, have tried several different approaches to adding this functionality to Beam. Our first attempt was not very successful because we have tried to avoid adding a virtual machine and instead using something that has this funny sounding name, scriptless scripts. Not our idea. It was kind of documented in many different sources, and people were trying to do it. And the idea was that you do the calculations off chain and then you verify it on chain. So you don't run Turing complete code on chain. Rather, you set some conditions. That was the original approach that was kind of the idea of how to use it in Bitcoin and similar blockchains that are similar to Bitcoin. And there are even podcasts and all kinds of articles back in the day where I talked about it and tried to explain our approach. But eventually we gave up because it was not very practical. We couldn't do too many things with that. And we have decided to add a virtual machine. Now, Ethereum virtual machine, which is today almost like the standard in the industry.
Yeah, it's pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah, so back then it was not exactly the case, even though it was powerful. But our problem with it was that once again, in Beam, everything is different. There are no addresses, right? So you have to, in any case, you have to reorganize everything. And we were making this kind of trade-off between using EVM and adapting it for Beam or developing something quicker and by ourselves. And once again, I don't know, like there are pros and cons. In retrospect, maybe we should have gone with EVM, but what we've decided to do, we've decided to build our own virtual machine. It runs WebAssembly, which is a very well-known technology stack under the hood, very robust. You can write contracts in C++ or Rust and then compile them into WebAssembly. That allowed us to move quicker, and it allowed us to move and do things more effectively because it was very native and integrated into the Beam node. One of the things that have allowed us to make this innovation was the previous work that we did just before the virtual machine, and it was the integration of the Lelantus protocol into Mimblewimble, which is what Beam is actually using today. Lelantus is a separate story, also very interesting. It's a protocol that is used by Firo. Yes. Previously it was called Zcoin, and it was developed for Firo by a very talented young cryptographer, Aram Zhivanyan from Armenia. So his idea was to use cryptography, which is very similar in many ways to what Mimblewimble uses. Okay. But the approach is to use a shielded pool, which basically means that you have a pool where you can put one UTXO in, and then after some time take a completely new UTXO out, while being able to prove that the amount is the same and it's actually the same UTXO. Now, it helped us. The reason that we looked into this direction was because of a problem in Mimblewimble that we knew existed. And this problem is called the linkability problem. So the idea is that if you are an active attacker and you're trying to send a lot of transactions to one wallet and then try to trace them and figure out whether they end in another wallet, you can do that. Now, you cannot know the values of those transactions and you cannot really de-anonymize the wallets, but you can statistically prove connection between them. Okay. Now, in my opinion, it was we didn't consider it like a major problem because, once again, yes, there is this possibility. On the other hand, it's much more likely that you would be de-anonymized through any metadata or OPSEC or any other failures, but not through the protocol. However, there was this very well known story with an article by Ivan Bogati. Back in the day, he published an article which claimed that he can easily de-anonymize Green and Mimblewimble transactions. And let's say it was a little bit, I would say, kind of oversimplified in many ways. Okay. So yes, the problem that it was describing was real. However, it was a very, very large distance between the problem and being able to easily de-anonymize users of Mimblewimble. However, this article had a huge impact.
Yeah, I remember that article.
Everybody does. I mean, many people do. And I was back then really I didn't really appreciate the impact because once again, when you look at everything from the inside and you say, yeah, but it's not exactly, I mean, I really didn't appreciate the damage that would be done to Mimblewimble by this article. So we could not at that time in any way fight it with marketing or publish we couldn't do it, right? We didn't have the influence. And we decided to instead to remove the problem in Beam altogether. And for that purpose, we said, you know what? Let's say this linkability issue is as big as this article claims. Let's get rid of it altogether. And so we integrated Lelantus. And Lelantus actually acts like this, when you're trying to run away from somebody and cover your tracks, you go through the river, right? So the tracks are not visible in the river, and then on the other side, you try to get away. So that's exactly what's happening. We kept the standard Mimblewimble transactions, but we have also added shielded transactions so that you can put the UTXO into the shielded pool, wait for the anonymity set to accumulate, and then you take a new UTXO out, and that completely breaks the linkability of the entire chain. Now, if enough people do it, then every time you are doing this, you're actually benefiting not just yourself, but also other users of the system, because you're breaking the graph in random places. As a side effect, it also allowed us to have non-interactive transactions, since Lelantus is non-interactive. We have documented everything we've done there, and we've published a paper about it. It's available to download from Beam website. It's called Lelantus Mimblewimble. And it describes this new protocol, which is a hybrid approach between Mimblewimble and Lelantus. It keeps the benefits from both protocols alive, and it also allows you to solve that linkability issue. While we were working on this, we have actually discovered, and the way that we implemented it was through the mechanism that's called transaction kernel extension. In Mimblewimble, you have the inputs, the outputs, and then you have another small part of the transaction. It's called the kernel. And originally, it was the technical addendum that only held the difference between the blinding factors, something very technical. But since this is a part of a transaction that remains in the blockchain forever, and it's signed by both parties, we have used it for many different things. We've implemented atomic swaps using this. Lelantus integration was used by using this mechanism. And then we said, wait a second. What if we also put instructions for the smart contract inside these kernels? And then we have created a a hybrid approach, because originally Beam is UTXO based, Ethereum is account based, and we needed this account based functionality for the smart contract. So we've done a a conversion. When you are sending a transaction, initially there is UTXO and it's consumed by a smart contract code, and it's converted into the state variable inside the node, and vice versa. So that allowed us to have very efficient smart contracts. And that's what the technical background is. And then we started building applications for this technology, right? So we've built the DEX, and we built NFT marketplace. There is a project that's running a stable coin on top of Beam, which is using the same idea like a liquidity and MakerDAO. So
it's amazing work which you guys have been able to accomplish. With the shielded pool that you mentioned that you guys implemented under Lelantus, is that an opt-in thing, or do all Beam transactions go through these shielded pools by default?
No. So when you're creating a transaction in Beam, there are two types of transactions: online and online interactive and non-interactive. And the first ones are using Mimblewimble, and the second ones is using the Lelantus shielded pool. So you have a choice how you want to transact.
Okay, amazing. And with the Beam wallet, when I first fired it up and used it, I was extremely impressed by how nice it is designed, how user-friendly it is, the interface, and how many different apps and dApps, I guess I should say dApps, decentralized applications, are actually like built into the wallet. Like the marketplace is right there, like in the wallet. You can like mint NFTs and stuff like right there in the wallet. Uh, like I would say you guys are ahead of a lot of other projects that are attempting to do these kind of things. Like, how long did it take you guys to put the wallet together in such a way that it feels such like a polished product?
Yeah, so the development of the wallet basically moved alongside the development of the blockchain functionality. It started by covering the bases, like being able to communicate, create transactions together, and then sending funds. And then when we have added smart contracts, we also added the kind of the front end part of the smart contracts. Now, one of the challenges of having a confidential blockchain is that, unlike Ethereum or any other, you cannot easily access information on chain. Like the blockchain explorer only shows you encrypted numbers, essentially. So for any interaction with the blockchain, you have to go through the wallet that keeps those secrets. And that's why in Beam architecture, it's different from most where you have just like a node RPC. In Beam, you don't have a node RPC, you have a wallet RPC. Okay. When you connect to wallet, and the wallet and the library inside the wallet is wrapped with many, many different kind of types of access. So you can use it as an API, just running on a server, or you can use it on your mobile phone, wrapped in a mobile application or a desktop. But the core functionality is inside this library. So when we have started adding these features, we made several attempts to combine it in a way that will not feel too cluttered. We had a very good product and managers and designers who worked on that tirelessly. We invented a lot, but one of the key things that we really wanted to preserve is decentralization. It's kind of called local first mentality, because one of the problems that you have with DeFi is that, yes, the smart contracts are running, but as we all know, your access to these smart contracts is, in most cases, done through a standard website that can be blocked, that can be censored, and we've seen examples of that. So what we've done instead, and this is the reason why you see all of these applications inside the wallet, is that they are completely decentralized. You can take an application, install it locally. It doesn't need to have any website or whatever. It goes directly to the blockchain and interacts with the smart contracts. Even more so, we have developed a decentralized application store where the application data itself is stored on IPFS and the metadata is stored on the smart contract. So you can even publish your application anonymously with Beam.
That's amazing.
And this is like one of the things that the Nifrit, which is the stablecoin project team, did. They published the application anonymously. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody cares. Obviously, you can prove that the same code that's running inside the smart contract is the one that was published. Mm-hmm. So that you don't buy, something that you cannot verify and you cannot see the source code for. And you can distribute applications locally. You can upload the archive to IPFS, and everything runs inside the wallet. You can, if you want to, obviously give other types of access, but essentially, if you don't want to reach out to any website, you can just do it inside the wallet, and that's how you preserve your sovereignty and help censorship resistance and decentralization. So this is kind of one of the important things we always try to focus on.
That's super cool. Like from a security standpoint, that's also like much better, right? Because like the way a lot of these exploits take place in the Ethereum ecosystem is like people will connect their wallet, their MetaMask to like some vague, strange smart contract in an effort to do something. And then like there'll be some malicious code that will like drain their wallet or whatever. Like with the architecture that Beam has set up, like it kind of prevents that, since everything's local within your own wallet and you're interacting with like a smart contract like through your own wallet locally, right?
Yeah, so we have tried to keep the surface of attack, or whatever the term for that is, smaller. But it's very important to realize that no matter the technology and no matter how much the developers tried, a lot of the responsibility for your own safety is still on you. Mm-hmm. And OPSEC is like, I mean, in my opinion, it should be taught in schools today, right, or in kindergarten. I don't even know, because really, yes, the wallet runs locally, but you know, if you have malicious software on your machine, that's it. We have developed support for Ledger, the hardware wallet,
Okay.
which removes this trusted host issue. But unfortunately, it was never released officially by Ledger, even though it was working. Beam wasn't big enough for them to kind of, you know, the line was long and we were not in the front of it. It was, by the way, a big challenge because it's not just kind of signing a basic transaction on Bitcoin or any other blockchain. Inside the Beam transaction, you have to calculate bulletproofs, which is kind of zero knowledge, non-interactive proof that the UTXO value is positive, and it kind of took us a lot of effort to make it work on the tiny devices, but eventually it did, even on the older models. Yeah, so it wasn't officially released. But this, for example, in general using hardware keys is very important for better security. And of course, like when we're talking about privacy and anonymity, it's a challenge, you know, even with the best technology, it's a challenge today.
I would agree, especially with like the wholesale data collection that's going on with like pretty much any online service that anybody interacts with. Yeah. With Beam, like you mentioned that it launched around the same time as Grin, and then there was like a departure in philosophy that led Beam to pursue all these additional modifications that you guys have done and innovations that you've done to Mimblewimble. Like, how similar would you say Beam is to Grin in its current form, like right now?
So today I think it's pretty far apart.
Okay.
I mean, there is a common kind of root of Mimblewimble and the cryptography that it brings. And once again, I mean, Green started before us. They, even though we didn't, like, we are not a fork of Green in any way. It's a completely new project in different technology, but we did kind of find a lot of inspiration in what they were doing. We did talk like as projects back in the day, so that we attended the same conferences and kept in touch. The Litecoin and Mimblewimble extension blocks,
yeah,
that were added to Litecoin a couple of years later. So it was also kind of somebody who worked with Green during this period of time and also talked to us. And kind of this was all part of this Mimblewimble kind of niche group of people. Like, unlike, you know, zero knowledge movement, which was like huge and enormous, this was a lot smaller of a community. So today I think it's almost unrecognizable. But back in the beginning, it was very important to have another project. Also, Beam took a completely different approach to kind of fundraising and structure management. Beam started as a regular company that raised funds from investors. And the model that we used was called the treasury model. So for the first 5 years of Beam's existence, 20% of all mining rewards went to a separate kind of account called the treasury. And from there, it was distributed to early investors, the team, and there was a big allocation for Beam Foundation. And the Beam Foundation took over about, I think, 3 years or something like that into the project when the company shut down. And the Beam Foundation had an independent board of directors, registered nonprofit, and neither me nor anyone from the team was there in the board. It was people who represented the different aspects of our users, traders, miners, etc. And so that was the kind of the second period of our governance. And then the third period, which is still in transition and going very slowly, is the movement to DAO that we are trying to make, including on-chain voting and things like that. Now, I mean, it's still very much work in progress and is moving slowly, but that's the eventual kind of goal that we have charted when we started this transition. Now, when we started as a company, at the same time, Green was completely open source, like funded project by the community, and they didn't raise any money, and they didn't have any kind of founders reward whatsoever. So it was a fair launch. So yeah, it was a challenge for us to. First of all, we were new kid on the block. We were later to the party, like to get started, even though eventually we launched at the same time. But it took us a lot of effort to prove that we're not scammers. Yeah, and also the team. It was kind of not just the crypto and the blockchain development was new to us. For me, it was my first project in crypto space.
Okay.
When I started with Beam, I didn't own a Bitcoin. I didn't own anything. I mean, the first cryptocurrency that I actually owned was Beam that I just launched.
Okay.
Yeah, but also it was new for us to work on a completely open source project with direct interaction with the community. Before that, we all worked in standard companies, and it was a big challenge to learn the completely different method of operation and communication. And yeah, it was an amazing journey, but it was scary at first, I have to admit.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. So, like, I guess in regards to your history, what did you do before, and how did you like stumble across crypto and get involved with Beam?
I was a software developer since like professionally since 2003.
Okay.
After my first job at a relatively large company back in the day, I moved almost exclusively to startups and small companies. I really hate the bureaucracy, the meetings, the atmosphere, and I really prefer small teams. And during one of these projects, I have met Guy Korem, and he was in crypto since I think 2011. Very early, he owned and developed ASIC-based miners for Bitcoin.
Okay.
Yeah, so was one of the larger competitors in the space, and he always kind of dreamt about building the ultimate cryptocurrency with privacy and excellent scalability. Now, unfortunately, it was pretty difficult to do both things together. So eventually what happened is that two projects that he kind of inspired and helped to become what they were. One was Beam, which took the privacy part of his dream, and the other one was Caspa,
Okay.
which took the scalability part. So these two projects have this kind of Guy Korem's dream in common. And that's how it started for me, because I was looking for a new project, and as I usually do, I reach out to people I previously worked with, and ask them what they're doing and whether they have something interesting, and said, what, I have this dream to build this confidential cryptocurrency. And I said, like, I don't even know what this means. And he said, don't worry. And we started talking about it, and he kind of dragged me into this rabbit hole of crypto. And I'm very thankful. So yeah, that's how I came on board. And then I brought people that I worked with on previous projects, very talented developers, and that's how we started.
So you kind of jumped into the deep end of the pool, like right from the start.
I was very fortunate to get great developers to be there with me, because not only were they able to learn this entire industry from scratch, but we also were able to innovate quite a lot within. We didn't invent the protocol; we got it right from that white paper, but we were managed to discover kind of these interesting and innovative ways to expand it and to make it what it is today. Yes, for sure. The team is amazing, and
I would agree. I would say that's kind of like what sets Beam apart, is that you guys have done a lot of really innovative things that are only being done within Beam, and maybe other crypto projects, if they paid attention, could benefit from the pioneering work that you guys have done. I want to change the subject a little bit and take it back to the Grin and Beam Mimblewimble dynamic, like in Monero or like other privacy coins, I should say, like we see like rivalries between like Monero and like Zcash. Like, do the Beam and Grin communities get along, or is there like somewhat of a rivalry there?
When we started in the beginning, obviously it was there was a kind of difficult situation where like some people who are not coming from crypto, they don't have any gravitas in the space, nobody knows who they are, they're commercial organization, they're trying to do something, they raised funds. Yeah, it was obviously very difficult, and at first it was a little bit kind of not hostile, but rather like adversary, yeah, competitive like feeling. But eventually, first of all, both are very small projects, right? So there is no place like, I mean, come on. Monero and Zcash were much larger back in the day, and this rivalry was different. But I think what we've done over the years, we've proved several things. First of all, we proved that we deliver. We deliver consistently and with high quality. We proved that we are about the real values of crypto, which unfortunately I see kind of getting eroded here and there. We can talk about that. But it was very important for us back in the day as it is now, and that's why we have chosen the building blocks that were well kind of proven and battle tested. We went with proof of work. We went with a standard kind of Bitcoin style emission schedule, very similar. We tried to do things with proper decentralization in mind. We always tried, whenever there was a kind of a possibility to make a decision, we always tried to make it more about proper decentralization and crypto, which by the way did cost us quite a lot in usability, because let's take atomic swaps, which is a great example. Atomic swaps, in my opinion, is the pinnacle of decentralized kind of value exchange, right? No third party and completely decentralized. But the downside is that you have to wait longer. You have to wait for confirmations. This entire process takes time. And you cannot cancel easily. It takes time then to kind of wait for this. And even though it is the proper way to do it, when you go to regular users, they prefer to just click a button on the website and they don't care what happens in the background necessarily. So yeah, so it is kind of a trade-off always between these things. We did all we could to offset this, like with better usability and kind of more investment in thinking about those features, but it's still different. Yeah, so we did a lot of work to create our reputation in the space, which is excellent. I mean, I'm really proud of what we have achieved in that regard. So today, I think that both Beam and Green are kind of in the same place, doing things properly for privacy, which is great. By the way, I have a lot of respect for Monero.
Okay.
And for what they are doing over the years. So, like when we talk about privacy, that's my role model. Not caring about anyone and doing what you need to do. Yeah, that's our situation.
Cool. You mentioned that Beam is using mining and proof of work, but there's like a staking component within the wallet. Like you can stake Beam. Is that like part of the governance, like in the transition to the DAO, or like how does the staking work within Beam?
Yes. So when we started this kind of second phase, I would call it, when we had working DeFi, and one of the things that we have decided to do is to create a new token that's called BeamX.
Okay.
And the idea was that BeamX is going to be a governance token for the DeFi ecosystem on Beam. Now, the point is that Beam, kind of the Beam coins, like it has monetary value and it's like kind of direct, right, emission schedule. But BeamX is more kind of a governance or like a shares of sorts, right? So in addition to participating in governance decisions, it also has kind of impact on which projects are added into the ecosystem, into this Beam DAO. So Beam DAO can fund or help the project to get launched on Beam chain. When the project is launched into Beam DAO, it also participates in the revenue sharing and from the fees that are accumulated in various protocols. That was kind of the plan. So all of the staking is related to BeamX and not to Beam.
Okay.
Beam will forever remain kind of proof of work protocol. BeamX is a completely different animal. It's kind of the layer 2 of sorts on top of the Beam chain.
If I hold BeamX and I'm staking it, like I receive revenues from like projects, and then I also vote on like which projects we want to fund with like the funds from the DAO and stuff like that, or which proposals go through and get added.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, nice. And like, how active would you say the DeFi ecosystem in Beam is? Like, I saw within the wallet, there's like quite a few dApps, there's the DEX, there's NFTs, there's all these things. Like, are there a fair amount of users that are interacting with each other, like within the Beam DeFi ecosystem?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't know exact numbers because privacy.
Yeah.
But I don't think there are too many. I mean, right now, especially right now, we are in kind of difficult times. The activity is relatively low.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the interesting things that happened when we launched and then kind of continued to expand it. So first of all, that was actually a funny story. One of the things that you can do on Beam is create new tokens. Now, unlike Ethereum, where you need an ERC20 smart contract, in Beam, this is a feature of the core functionality.
Okay.
So you have an ability to create new coins for you inside the node. You don't need a smart contract for that. And one of the cool features is that these new tokens are exactly as confidential as Beam itself.
Wow.
Now, they're like first-class citizens of the blockchain. They're not, an addition. And when we have first launched this functionality, our thought process, and this illustrates how how wrong we are every once in a while. We said, yeah, but like, who's going to create a new token? It's probably going to be a rare process. The fees should be relatively high. Somebody is serious enough to launch a token. And then, obviously it wasn't the case. And we had to fork it out. Like during one of the forks, we have significantly reduced the fees. The fees were, by the way, going to the miners and to the protocol, like not to anyone in specific. And then we suddenly saw that people started to create lots of interesting tokens for lots of interesting kind of ideas. And trading them and creating meme coins all of a sudden, right? That was the way to go. Like that caused a spike in kind of in people trying to do interesting things with Beam tokens. And same went with the NFTs. NFTs started as a funny competition for Halloween several years ago. We said, let's do this kind of, it was an NFT craze all around, obviously, and we said, let's do a small kind of application where you can upload images, and we had a contest for Halloween. It went crazy. People use it like all over the place. Confidential NFTs, it's cool. And then we suddenly discovered that there is a case where you need confidentiality with NFTs, because sometimes you want to show off part of your collection without revealing everything you hold, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we did that, and it was very interesting to watch. So yeah, there were times when there was kind of more traction. Right now, I think it's a little bit less, but all of the building blocks are there, and technologically speaking, you can do anything you can do on Ethereum, you can do also on Beam.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's like what people are looking for. I'm surprised like more people aren't more aware of Beam. for that reason. Like everyone's like waiting on these like private DeFi projects, and Beam has been around like doing it
first of all,
for a while.
First of all, everything Beam is doing is open source, and I think it's very important. Look, everything is in GitHub, and you can go and take a look. Or if you are actually looking for such a thing, or you want to know more, you're always welcome to reach me directly on Telegram. I don't know if you have somewhere to put my credentials, or on Twitter, and I'm always happy to talk about. We did several.
I can definitely include that in the description for sure.
That would be great. We did some interesting collaborations with other projects before, so always welcome. I'm always happy to talk about privacy as well. But what we found out is privacy is relatively difficult to sell, despite the fact that everybody says, yeah, we need it, we want it. But when it comes to kind of, to acting on it, most people, like, especially when we're talking about traders, and as we know in DeFi, it's mostly like, or a lot of it is speculative trading. People just don't really care for now. And yes, we see where it's all going, right? We see what's happening. We see the trends, and they're not like, one of the problems with privacy is that when you really need it, it's too late.
Yeah. You don't want it until you need it, and then by that time you've already been exploited.
Yes, and it's exploited, it's tracked, it's there are a lot of kind of things that you, in retrospect, you said, oh, I wish I kept that private. But despite all of this kind of awareness, when you come to the practical part of things, practically people still don't really care, despite all that. A lot of this comes from awareness. That's why I said, we have to teach this in schools, because I see, in general, not just in crypto, how people approach technology. And I'd say there is a lot to learn for everybody. And that's why I think what you're doing is very important, spreading awareness about this subject. That's very great and important job.
Thank you. So with Beam, like, you guys have a full DeFi ecosystem that you can do pretty much anything you can do in other Web3 ecosystems like Ethereum. One of the things that I've noticed in the Ethereum and like just overall Web3 ecosystem of multiple chains that use EVM is the bridges and like the interactivity between the different blockchains. With Beam, since you guys built your own virtual machine and you have a lot of unique innovations and technology that really don't apply to these other blockchains that are totally public, are you guys able to interact with them? Are there bridges that will go to like Ethereum or like Cosmos or AVAX or like one of these other chains that's like a buzzword popular at the moment?
Yes. So right now we already have operating bridges with Ethereum.
Okay.
And these are simple, relatively simple centralized bridges. I'm not proud of them, but they work.
They exist.
And anyone, so basically, what you're doing is you are moving assets from Ethereum into wrapped versions on Beam, and then you can trade them confidentially inside Beam DeFi on DEXs or kind of any other applications. And you can then move them back. Obviously, when you move back to Ethereum, you lose all back the confidentiality, right? Anything you do inside Beam is completely private. Now, we also have a wrapped version of Beam on Ethereum.
Okay.
That's obviously kind of, it's not helping privacy because you have private Beam, and then, but it does help liquidity or trading or kind of the other aspects of awareness, and then, theoretically maybe Beam price. So yeah, we have bridges, and these bridges can be easily extended to other blockchains. We just need, somebody needs to operate them, because right now you need to exchange the fees. You get fees in one blockchain, you need to kind of convert it to another one, but they're there and they work. We thought about kind of trying to do something with side chains back in the day, but that's probably not going to happen in the near future. But yeah, so the Beam is interoperable with a few blockchains. Yeah.
In Beam, like the scalability, like it seems like it's very, very fast. You mentioned that Mimblewimble provides like scalability benefits due to the fact that it doesn't store so much data on chain and stuff like that. Like, how does it compare, I guess, like the scalability?
So when we talk about scalability, we can talk about two aspects. One is the blockchain size, which yes, indeed is better in Mimblewimble. However, it's important to realize that with the addition of Lelantos and smart contracts, some of these benefits got lost.
Okay.
Not all of them, but some of them.
Okay.
The other kind of more popular aspect of scalability is in terms of transactions per second. And in Beam, it's about 17 transactions per second, which is the similar rate to Ethereum.
Ethereum, yeah.
However, there are differences. The first difference is that in Ethereum, the blocks are created every 15 seconds, 12, 15 seconds or so. In Beam, it's 1 block per minute. So you have more latency, right, in terms of the time.
Okay.
However, one of the interesting things that we've done to kind of help with this aspect is we have used a interesting mechanism of treating the mempool inside the decentralized applications. Instead of treating the mempool as this kind of a list of transactions from which the miner just chooses the most profitable ones to mine, we have structured it as a sort of a tree. And what it means is that when I put my transaction inside the mempool, I can say, listen, I want to be after this transaction, or not at all. And in practice, it means that I can then know, like, if my transaction is going to be included in the blockchain, what is the order, what order it's going to be, and then I can predict the state better. So this is the approach that allows us to, when you're trading on DEX, you can make decisions and you can understand in real time like what's happening with the mempool and how it reacts. Obviously, the whole branch may not be included, but if it is included, you know exactly the order of the transactions in the branch.
Does that allow for like MEV and like front running though, or it doesn't because it's private?
So it doesn't allow sandwiching. It allows back running still.
Okay.
But yeah, like that's exactly like the point, right? So you kind of fix your position. You say my transaction is going to be in this place or not at all. Yeah. So in terms of sandwiching, it really helps. But it also, like, not more important, but also importantly, it helps to make the trading experience smoother, right? Because in most cases, like, this is going to be the branch that's going to go in anyway, right? So you react to it. And even though the block is only confirmed after 1 minute, in kind of the UI space, it looks better. Okay.
And with Beam, like, is there like a supply cap, or does it have like a Monero dynamic where there's like a like tail emission kind of thing going on? Like,
no,
how many Beam tokens are there?
Yeah, so as of now, there is a cap of 262,800,000, and the reason for this weird number is just because of the kind of the emission that we started with, which was 100 coins per block, and then we did the first halving after 1 year, and then every 4. So when you
there's halvings as well.
Yes, every 4 years. Yeah.
Okay.
So Beam was launched in 2019. 2020 there was the first halving, which was relatively fast.
Mm-hmm.
And just in the beginning of this year, 2024, there was the second one, and it also kind of so there are a lot of anniversaries, 5 years, but also it marked the end of the treasury emission.
Okay.
So as of right now, all of the coins are going 100% to the miners.
Okay. And then, like, I guess when the halvings happen, does the block reward like decrease, like we see in Bitcoin?
Yes, exactly the same mechanism, exactly the same approach.
Okay. Wow. I was unaware of that. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
And no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say that on the website we have somewhere on the bottom we have this kind of the roadmap, and You can see the forks that we went through when we have added smart contracts and other kind of interesting improvements and the halving. So it's all there.
Nice. That was going to be the other question that I wanted to ask you. You mentioned that there's been forks. Like, do you regularly upgrade Beam like through a fork process, like similar to Monero or like other blockchains like Ethereum, or how does that work?
So most of the upgrades are upgrades for wallets and kind of functionality that doesn't require the consensus rule changes. We did have some forks. So first of all, when we launched, we promised at least 2 forks to avoid the ASICs back in the day.
Okay.
And these forks were to change the parameters of the mining, so it wouldn't be kind of practical or cost-effective to develop ASICs. In retrospect, Beam price never reached the point where it was cost-effective to do that, but we were optimistic. But so we had 2 forks about that, and then we had a fork to add the smart contract functionality. The next fork that's going to happen, and I don't know when it's going to be, but when it comes, is going to be to eventually, after all these years, add EVM support to Beam.
Okay, nice. So then you'll be like directly compatible with Ethereum smart contracts, and it'll be easy to port them over and that kind of thing.
Yeah, because the community, I mean, the EVM and Solidity development community is so far, kind of greater than anything. So there is no reason to learn new technologies. We have to just add EVM, and then you can run existing smart contracts and easily attract developers to Beam.
There's a lot of people that think like Ethereum's kind of dead now, that there's like faster competing chains, but like I feel like if that's true, like Ethereum's legacy is the EVM, and that every other chain pretty much has adopted it, like for smart contracting.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, hoary words about technologies and the Ethereum killers, they are not going to stop, and people are not going to stop trying as well, which is great. Mm-hmm. But I mean, a lot can be said for and against the Ethereum approach to Solidity as a language for smart contracts and such. But when we look at realistically, that's the standard de facto. That's what people are developing. Most new chains are trying to support EVM from day one because they understand the meaning of not doing that, even though there are those who don't, like Solana. But today it's, I think, at least from the technological perspective, it's like JavaScript. People hate it, but it's everywhere.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Another question that I wanted to ask is, like, I know Beam has its own DEX, right? That's in the wallet, but yes, we've seen, like, since the delisting of Monero from Binance, a lot of people have been motivated to really work on these decentralized exchange projects. There's Basic Swap. Decred just launched one called Bison Wallet, which is actually really, really cool. And Firo has a DEX. There's a Zano DEX. Like, are you guys working towards getting Beam listed on any of these other DEX projects? I know Havino just came out. There's Sarai that's about to come out soon. Like, there's this big push towards like decentralized trading. Like, is the Beam team looking to get Beam listed on these other decentralized exchanges to kind of maybe like increase the exposure or like market share of Beam in these decentralized trading platforms?
Yeah, so first of all, the short answer is definitely yes. Okay. We are interested in any listings collaboration, especially with decentralized projects. We don't remember the exact names right now, but we did have a few listings the last year, which was kind of decentralized projects. The more decentralized, the better.
I would agree. I love the fact that you guys are so dedicated to like the values that crypto launched with of decentralization, privacy, anonymity. We spoke on it a little bit earlier that those values are being eroded, and I agree. Like I believe that with like crypto projects seeking out like regulatory approval and mainstream adoption, a lot of people have really like kind of bent the knee towards these fundamental core values that crypto is based upon. Like, what are your thoughts on this change? Like, now that like more mainstream people have like kind of come into crypto, like these values are being eroded. Like how do you see like the future of crypto moving forward?
So, I mean, one of the questions that was often asked during all these years is like, what does adoption look like? We're early, we're always early. And yes, we are, because once you step outside the crypto world for a second and you just go out with normal people, you realize how much you are inside this space and how much, people outside of it don't really
even
care
know
about.
it.
Yeah. And that's exactly the question. So when I first started with crypto, I got really excited about the fact that it's actually in this amazing intersection between technology, economics, sociology in many ways, right? And even philosophy of sorts. And I am really kind of happy to see that some of this did kind of happen, right? So Bitcoin and then kind of this concept of having cryptographic money. Right now, it's like almost the effect of life, right? 2019, Bitcoin was like $3,000, and after being like 20, and everybody said it's over and it's going to disappear and nobody cares. Like all of that happened, but no, it didn't disappear. It actually became, as stable as it gets in terms of the perception, right? So nobody thinks, will there be Bitcoin or not, right? That's not no longer the discussion. But that was not the case 6 years ago. Now, the same thing happens to Ethereum. It's kind of the next stepping stone, DeFi. Nobody is going to talk about whether there will be DeFi or there will not be DeFi. Instead, it's going to be which DeFi and which blockchain, which applications, right? So we have passed these several steps of kind of adoption inside people's minds of like what's going to happen and what's not. Now, during this phase of kind of transitioning from niche technology to kind of more, more widely adopted, obviously there would have been a clash or some kind of conflict within with governments, with authorities, with regulations. When we started being in 2018, we went to a consulting company, one of the big four.
Okay.
And we sat down with them and we said, listen, what in your opinion are going to be the features that a privacy project needs in order to be able to provide their users with the option to be compliant? This was our approach from day one. We called it opt-in auditability. So everything is private by default. It's not like you can choose to be private or not. However, if you as a user want to be compliant, you want to fill tax reports, you can do that. You can prove things about your own activity, right? One of the interesting kind of side effects of interactive Mimblewimble is that you can sign receipts during the transaction. You can sign documents, right? You can, for example, you can sit right now and somebody can send you, I don't know, some Monero or some Bitcoin. You can't do anything about it. They know your address. They send you money, right?
Yeah.
Go prove that that was intentional, was not intentional. And by the way, what do you do in this situation? So in Mimblewimble, it's interactive. You can theoretically say, no, I don't want to receive this transaction or whatever, if you're a business.
Wow.
Yeah. So we actually took some effort and paid some money to get this opinion. Obviously, they didn't know too much back in the day, despite being a lot of people in a lot of suits in the room. And they said, you know what, you have to be just like Bitcoin. And we said, yeah, but we cannot and we will not be like Bitcoin. We can prove to you what I'm doing with my wallet, but that's not enough. They want to see the entire chain of AML kind of source of funds, where it goes. We said, yeah, that's not possible. And back then we went into this, we got to this realization that the only way it can practically work in this scenario is where you have a kind of a bank between any two transactions, right? So let's say you're compliant, you want to use Monero or whatever, Beam, any privacy coin, you want to be 100% compliant, you have each of your transactions to go through intermediary that verifies it. That's the only way it can work. Otherwise, if you get like 2 steps, or you get funds from somebody and you don't know who he got it from, that's it. The current AML compliance breaks. That was back in the day where everybody said, oh, privacy coins are going to be delisted everywhere in 2 months. That didn't happen. And the reason I'm telling you about this is because we see this kind of movement from both directions. Like, things change. They don't change in one way. The regulation is getting adopted, and the technology changes accordingly. And eventually, I do think that there will be a way of all of this to coexist. When I talk about kind of erosion of values, I think that in many decision-making processes, the crypto community does not push hard enough so that the other side will move further. So that's the kind of decision. We will have to kind of coexist, but I wouldn't give up decentralization too quickly and privacy too quickly, right? It's very difficult because the incentives, especially monetary incentives, are there. Be more centralized, be more kind of, don't really care about that. It will make you more money because you will be able to adopt faster. And that's what kind of is difficult to, especially for founders, of commercial projects to kind of to fight with. Like they're incentivized to move in this specific direction. We have less layer ones, right? It's less popular to create new layer ones today. It's all layer twos for Ethereum. So Ethereum, we need to solve the problems and do it faster, do it safer, do it with ZK. So that's kind of the process that we're seeing in many ways.
I would like to see it move in the opposite direction. I would like to see like crypto developers develop things that make regulators and oversight like completely irrelevant, and like really put freedom back in the hands of the user. Because like with our current legacy financial system, there is so much invasive surveillance, like limits on how you can use your own money, blocks that will stop you from like making a transaction because it doesn't meet like a certain criteria. So like all of these things are interference with the free market, in my opinion. And I would really just love to see like crypto developers like push back completely and make like completely anonymous tools that really make any sort of like compliance or like AML or any sort of oversight or surveillance like completely ineffective. I feel like that is the path forward, but the people that care about that are a very, very, very small group of people. Like they're basically only the privacy coin communities, and privacy coins are a very, very niche like subgenre of the overall like 20,000 crypto coins that exist. So I see where you're saying like people are going, the other way because of financial incentives and number go up and things of that nature. But like, to me, that's a house of cards. Like if you look at like the internet, HTTP was very, very popular for a long time. But like at some point, like the world realized like, no, we need privacy. We need SSL. We need TLS. We need, some sort of encryption. Mm-hmm. And I expect crypto to come to that same conclusion and design structure at some point, which is why like I think privacy coins are so important. And like like the pioneering work that you guys are doing at Beam is very, very important, because you guys are laying the groundwork for technology that I think is going to end up being adopted in maybe not the very near future, but in the future at some point. And like what you were saying about how with DeFi, like you can see, you just need a wallet address and like chain analytics can see all this stuff. I feel like that's what's held back mainstream crypto adoption. Like these companies don't want to give up business intelligence. They don't want to give up financial intelligence on like what they're doing and how they're making a profit and what they're paying and who they're paying and all these factors. So like I feel like that's why crypto is currently like in its speculative bubble, where the main use case is just speculation and fiat arbitrage, rather than being adopted as like a serious financial technology. And like the ways we're seeing crypto be adopted right now is like these rudimentary attempts by like legacy finance to kind of like put a square peg in a round hole and try to make crypto fit into their legacy financial framework. And that's why like security tokens and things like that they're trying to like pioneer right now are not having any success, because by neutering crypto's like revolutionary technological basis, they are basically making it, you know, not worth the effort. So like I would love to see like a rejuvenation of like these cypherpunk philosophy like built into like most crypto projects. Like what do you think about that?
So when I'm wearing my technologist hat, I mean, crypto is a gold mine. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Uh, Everything is moving forward very quickly. Things are changing, new projects, new ideas, and new technologies. I mean, there was never a dull moment. I enjoyed every moment of all of these years, and it's a lot of years. Um, when I'm more kind of a concerned citizen at the time, so yes, I definitely agree that it's interesting, because what we are seeing today is that the surveillance mode of thinking in all areas, not just in financial, like in general, it's really taking over. I mean, that's what I feel, right? Um, Almost not possible to do anything without getting tracked in some way. And even though there are improvements in privacy technologies and encryption and everything, when we're talking about daily lives, the direction is exactly the opposite. More of your information is online, it's accessible, it's scannable, you can't do anything about it. You know, without going into the conspiracy theory kind of realm, but I think even the most practically mindful people can see that this is the direction that is going. And that's why I think that it's very important for us as kind of people who represent the more privacy-oriented view to do our job of both providing the technology, but also providing the awareness um, and talking about these subjects. Because I think in many cases there are no discussions; things just happen, and the other side is misrepresented. The side that wants us to have more privacy and not less during our daily lives. Um, I mean, I'm not a cyberpunk myself, in it, but I'm not. I don't come from that kind of background. But I I see how easily people give up on things that they don't necessarily have to in this, because they are not thinking about it enough. Um, so yeah, first of all, definitely when the demand comes for these types of technologies, Beam is ready. And I will continue to work and improve in this space as well. But in addition to all that, I think that I'll just give you like one example. When we during the time like we were working on the smart contracts and integration, especially the NFT gallery, we have added the IPFS support to Beam, and there was this story that everybody knows about the arrest of the Tornado Cash developer.
Yeah.
And back in the day, there was also stories about pressure that Bitcoin core developers and core maintainers faced because of their contribution to the project. And so we said, I mean, how difficult would it be to become an anonymous contributor to a software project? It's pretty difficult, because yes, you can register a Proton Mail, assuming that's okay, and then register to GitHub with that, right? But yeah, GitHub can deplatform you. It's very difficult to maintain, various identities for various services. And so we said, wait a second, we already have IPFS integration. We have a blockchain with confidentiality. Why don't we try to build decentralized GitHub, basically, with privacy? And so we did. We started a small project called Source. We tried to fundraise it. We didn't succeed. Nobody wanted to compete with GitHub back in the day. And the idea that we managed very quickly to create a system that looks completely transparent for the developer. The developer just does the regular operations of commit and push, But as a result, the code is stored on the IPFS, and the metadata is stored on chain, and nobody knows who you are. You can actually choose create a new identity for each commit automatically. They will not be linked.
I think that is super important. First of all, like Amir Taki from DarkFi, who was an early Bitcoin developer, just wrote a blog post about how the developers that are working on DarkFi are like only doing contributions over Tor. They're communicating through a chat app that they made that is totally anonymous, and they are pushing their code to a Codeberg instance that lets them contribute over Tor, right? So like they're doing something similar, except for, I don't know, like Codeberg, obviously you need to host like the instance on a server somewhere. So maybe that's the weak link in the chain, whereas you guys have solved that with IPFS being a decentralized data storage platform. But like, again, this is like something that he was just talking about like 2 weeks ago, and you guys already did this like a year or years ago, right? So like, this is what I'm talking about. Like Beam is like, you're right when you say it's like the best kept secret in crypto. Like you guys are pushing like these innovative ideas, and you're not getting the attention you deserve, in my opinion, because like this is something that I think is needed, like for privacy tools, like with the crackdown on the Samurai wallet guys, with Roman Storm, with Tornado Cash, and then Roman Sterlingov, and you know, all these Pavel Durov, like even Elon Musk getting kicked out of Brazil, like seeing these people create technological products and then being persecuted for them because they give the user too much freedom, they put the user first and protect the user's data, and these kind of things. Like this is very, very important. Like right now we're seeing governments around the world like try to impose like a tyrannical, like authoritarian like framework on software development, and they're doing it by a campaign of like intimidation and persecution, which historically, if you look at the type of like entities that do that, they're always the bad guys, right? This is not a good thing. I don't think anybody can agree that intimidating software developers and locking them up for writing code is a good development and like better for humanity. So like it's super important to be able to contribute to these projects as a developer in an anonymous way. And that's very, very impressive that you guys have been, you know, thinking along those lines and created a solution for that.
Yeah. So it's also open source, by the way. It's on GitHub. You can take a look at what we've done and, you know, take it and expand it if you want. It worked well. It really worked well.
Are you guys still using it for development on Beam right now?
No, we don't. We didn't get it to a kind of production level. It was a kind of a more of a demo, technological demo that we created relatively quickly.
Like a minimum viable product kind of thing?
It's not even like a product, but it was a tech demo, right? It's not preview of what's possible. For example, one of the things that you needed in such a system is to be able to pay transaction fees for your commits, right?
Okay.
And it's annoying because in many blockchains, you need to have either a native currency of the blockchain to pay the transaction fees. Now, these days in Ethereum, we have the concept of paymasters with the smart account abstraction wallets. In Beam, it was kind of implicit from day one. The contract would subsidize your transactions for you. And you got this experience of somebody buying a kind of monthly subscription that covers, I don't know, 10,000 commits or whatever.
Okay.
And then you just, as a user, you don't feel it. The contract subsidizes your transactions.
Is there any, I guess, like thoughts on renewing an effort to kind of push that forward? Or is it kind of just dead in the water now?
No, it's funny, but about, I think it was 2 days ago, one of the developers that worked on this with us, he reached out and mentioned that Radical just launched. Radical was a similar kind of direction of a project. They also did a decentralized Git without the privacy focus. They just wanted it to be kind of a more decentralized system. One of the problems with, as you know, many platforms, GitHub is one example. The Tornado Cash code was removed. Later it was reinstated, but they can remove your repository any second. More often today, it happens on platforms like YouTube. YouTube constantly deplatforms, right? Channels, removes content, etc. People go to Rumble and other places. So it happens a lot. And so Radical was this kind of a attempt to make it more decentralized. They just launched. I didn't take a look at it yet, but it was about, like, I don't know, back in the same time that we were developing Source, they were working on their first versions. Yeah, so I would say that if anyone is really interested in taking this up, like we will gladly join and, join in. Absolutely, we love this project. We were very sad we couldn't raise for it, and we couldn't afford to develop it without funding at that point. Also, it kind of competed with Beam on resources, and we obviously continue to work on Beam most of the part. But yeah, the idea is there, the implementation is there, it works. I know it sounds funny, but even today, like, Beam is the only kind of confidential cryptocurrency with like proper smart contracts. Like, there are others who are catching up, but on Beam it's relatively, I wouldn't say easy, but there are more flexibility for implementing these things. So yeah, like it suits as a platform for all kind of non-financial Web3 and decentralized applications.
Okay, and then I guess we're getting to the end of the interview here, but my final question is, we've seen this big push for DAOs and decentralized autonomous organizations as a way to like mobilize a bunch of people that share like a common interest towards a common goal. You mentioned that the Beam Foundation or Treasury is moving towards a DAO. Like, if I wanted to launch a DAO, like for a specific objective, on Beam, like how would I go about doing so?
So like any application, you have two parts. You have the smart contract part, and then you have the UI that you run inside the wallet, or you can host it as a website if you so choose. We provide help. Like, you just basically reach out to or me directly. We also have the developer support channel on Telegram, or just the general community, and we provide any help that we can in advising, implementing parts of these things that are more difficult to implement. The benefits that you get is that the voting in your DAO is going to be confidential, which is sometimes important. Sometimes you do want to know who voted for what, but just like in our daily regular elections or whatever, like usually people vote inside the closed booth, so nobody knows unless they choose to disclose this information, who they voted for. It's considered part, right? I mean, it's important because then you don't, like, you vote your heart and you don't have external influences. In 90% of, I think, even more decentralized voting systems, which don't just kind of, store the results that were made somewhere, there is no privacy. Like, when you vote on Ethereum, everybody knows which wallet voted for what, and it's a different experience, not necessarily a better one.
The reason, like the primary motivation behind my question, is that recently, well, not recently, a few months ago, I interviewed Lunar Mining from DarkFi about DarkFi, and we were talking, and she, not in the interview, like outside of the interview, and she was saying that she was working with the Assange DAO, and the Assange DAO was like the first time like a DAO was used for like a political objective, and they were actually able to raise enough funds to like donate all the money to the legal defense, and they were instrumental in helping free Julian Assange from his long legal battle. And right now, like with these crackdowns that we're seeing on developers that are creating privacy tools, privacy wallets, Bitcoin mixers, Tornado Cash, like all these guys that are being wrongfully persecuted, like I think it would be amazing to have a platform to create DAOs to kind of help raise funds and like help them defend themselves. But to do that, like, I think using a transparent platform like Ethereum presents an attack surface to all the people that contribute to it and, want to help out in these efforts. So like, I was wondering if a platform like Beam, which offers like DAOs and then like smart contracts and confidentiality and stuff like that, would be suitable to launch a project like this, like a DAO that could maybe, raise funds to contribute to legal defense for someone like the Samurai Wallet guys or the Romans that are being wrongfully persecuted right now?
So yeah, so technologically speaking, Beam can provide all of the building blocks for building applications with privacy in mind. Starting from smart contracts, which are fully functional, Turing complete, you can implement anything. Decentralized distributed applications that you can distribute anonymously. Then you have the ability to create new tokens for your cause for any purpose, whether it's like monetary or non-monetary awards or participation tokens or anything else, which are as confidential as Beam itself. And all that with kind of very easy to use packaging. We have both mobile wallets and desktop wallets. So I think that anyone who wants to build a privacy application with financial component, which is on chain, can definitely do it on Beam, most certainly. Now, in certain cases, even if you don't want, like for example, to use the public blockchain, you can fork it and run it privately as well, and use it just like a technological background. All right, it's still great. Like there are a lot of different things that you can do. We have a set of well-documented APIs in our GitHub documentation. So it's easy to integrate with us if you just want to integrate existing sites. And, yeah, we support a lot of, we have a web wallet that you can integrate inside your page. A lot of different ways to build things on Beam.
That's amazing. That's like one of the use cases that I think is super important is DAOs and like trying to accomplish things that, have controversy behind them, to where like if there's like a centralized organization, it could be stopped in its tracks by either legal or some other kind of pressure, like social pressure even. So like I think that's super cool, but like it also opens up like a lot of doors to do new things that people haven't even thought of doing yet. And like I'm super excited about it.
I totally agree.
Well, Alex, you've been super generous with your time for the second time. And thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there any final words you want to say? And can you give people information on how they can either contribute to Beam, download the wallet, follow you guys on socials, all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you very much for having me for the second time. And we have a website, beam.mw, and we have very active communities on Telegram and on Discord. And on Twitter, we have like just look for Beam or Beam Privacy. So I think that most of the information, or at least to getting started guides, are there and easily accessible. However, we do have a lot of friendly people in community that always help if you have any questions. We have a separate community for developers and for users, just to avoid confusing people with too technical stuff. Anytime, reach out to me if you want like to talk about privacy or anything as well. Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few projects out there that take this thing seriously. Beam is definitely striving to be one of them. We're not the only ones. I think it's important to support both Beam and other projects that are trying to do things in the privacy space, because eventually, yeah, we all need it. It's difficult to come by, and it's important.
I agree. And thank you so much once again.
Thanks a lot.